Well, college basketball fans, we are back aboard for another Saturday Nightcap live on the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms. I am merely the somewhat competent host, TJ Reeves. Hello to my Saturday night wingman, Jason Powers, at JPO Sports on social media and the Powers on Sports podcast. Great to be back with you on all the platforms, Twitter, X, Facebook, YouTube, however you're seeing us live and finding us. We love doing this, Jason Powers. Good to be back with you as February rolls on, and you know that March is right around the corner. My friend, good to be with you.
And when you have heavyweight matchups like we had today, some dramatic finishes, we had a couple of big upsets. I know we're going to talk about that in the Big East. Another 1-2 showdown with some history made in Tuscaloosa. Great action. And again, 4 weeks from tomorrow, Selection Sunday.
And the committee has given an early reveal of the top 16 teams in their bracket. We're going to talk about that. Straight ahead, Adam Zagoria will be here from NJ.com and the Zags blog. Adam was on scene for the Seton Hall stunner over UConn this afternoon, Jason. They win in overtime off a 9-game losing streak. The two-time defending national champs. Go figure them. They beat Creighton at Creighton in the midweek, and they can't beat Seton Hall. That's 4 straight times they've lost to Seton Hall in Newark after what happened today. Go figure. Welcome to college basketball.
Couldn't happen to a better guy than Danny Hurley.
Oh, he was not holding up the fingers going 2 rings to the Seton Hall fans at the end of the game. He played at Seton Hall. So we'll get into all of that with Adam in a few minutes. Later in the hour, Matt Zimick will be here. He's not only our West Coast bureau chief for everything kind of west of the Mississippi, but also a resource, historian, national writer of college basketball for a long time. Love Matt's takes. He will be here on a day that has seen, as you mentioned, Auburn beat Alabama in the 1-2 game on the road. How about Wisconsin goes into Purdue and wins? Houston out west, where Matt is, goes into Arizona and wins. Some teams making statements on the road, Jason, and Matt will be here later to talk about it.
And we'll also get Matt's views on Juju with the big upset over UCLA a couple nights ago.
Juju Watkins of USC, amazing in the women's game with the threes, the block shots. She is a ton of fun. And the comparison's already starting up to Caitlin Clark with the ability to score, the scoring range. Good for the women's game as well. And Matt writes for the USC Trojans Wire website from USA Today. He's going to be here on all of those fronts in a little bit. Hey, say something before we get to Adam and our discussion. Adam and I talked just a little while ago. We're going to play our conversation about the Big East, but we cannot bury the Auburn win. Let's start with that with tonight, 1-2. Only the 4th time in the 2000s that we've gotten 1-2 in the regular season of a game. It's the first time since 2008 that it's the same 2 teams from the same state. Interesting that was Bruce Pearl in Tennessee beating my Memphis Tigers, who we're going to talk about later in the show. Memphis was undefeated in February of 2008, number 1 against number 2 Tennessee, and Bruce Pearl's Tennessee team won that game. Today, Pearl's team was number 1 Auburn playing at number 2 Alabama. They were up throughout the game. Alabama made the big run. Jason and I are texting each other back and forth. You watching this? Yes, I am. You seeing that 3? Yes, I did. You see that block? Yes, I did. That's how you know it's a great game. And Auburn ends up pulling away at the end to win. What are your thoughts having seen the Tigers' latest flexing of their muscle against the top teams on their schedule?
And even more adversity, Janai Broome goes down in the second half with an ankle injury, and we're thinking, uh-oh. They weather the storm. He comes back in the game and plays really well the last 5-6 minutes, has a couple of key buckets down the stretch, couple blocks. Might he have clinched the player of the year tonight, TJ Reeves?
Maybe.
And how about
Cooper Flag and Janai Broome are in a 2-horse race, and the rest of the field is like Secretariat at the Belmont. You're looking back with binoculars on everybody else. It's those 2, but Broome is tremendous. The thing that I am struck by, not only Bruce Pearl's coaching, as you briefly referenced, but they've got like 7 guys, speak to this, Jason, that are tall, the long arms that can defend, that can score on their own. they're not invincible, but man, they have so many interchangeable players, probably in the range of about 6'5", all the way up to Broom at 7 feet. Several of them are 6'8", 6'7". They're going to be a handful. SEC tournament and NCAA tournament. Yes.
How about Denver Jones D'ing up Mark Sears most of that day, playing really well, scoring, and you even have a villain on that team, Mazzaro, with another dubious foul there late in the game. A guy that people love to hate in that league. Again, they've got some villainism in them. But give Bruce Pearl credit. This guy can win a game in the 50s, and a guy can win the game in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, there is no doubt. All right, and we're also aware we're doing this live on this Saturday night. Again, if you're hearing us, College Basketball Coast to Coast is also a podcast. If you're hearing us on Sunday in podcast form, live shows on Saturday nights coming in March, live shows recapping conference tournament championship week, recapping after NCAA tournament games are being played. We're going to be live. But also find us on podcast at Apple, Spreaker, Spotify with the podcast Basketball Coast to Coast. Live version on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Thank you for finding us. And look, we'll go over the Wisconsin big win on the road. Again, at Purdue. They're dangerous in the Big Ten. Bounce back win has just gone final at Champaign with Michigan State beating Illinois after a midweek loss to your Indiana Hoosiers. Michigan State bounces back, my friend, and gets it done tonight at Illinois, pulling away late in the game. So a day of the road teams. Again, Houston at Arizona also today on the road.
State beats Ole Miss.
It goes to Ole Miss and wins. A day for the road teams, Jason, just as a theme. One more time.
Absolutely. We again, the first reveal. And how about the history in Tuscaloosa? Bruce Pearl, first coach in the history of the NCAA coach to win 2 1-versus-2 matchups. You referenced Tennessee, Memphis,
yep.
Auburn, Alabama today at 2 different schools.
It's
He's
incredible.
the only guy that's ever done it.
By the way, if you need them, that is now 10 quad 1 wins this year. Nobody else has more than like 6 or 7. They've got 10 of them. Auburn is having a great year. Anything can happen in March. Remember, a year ago, they lost in the opening round to Yale all the way out in Spokane, Washington. So anything can happen, and I don't think several of those guys have forgotten that.
Nope.
On that Auburn team. But man, that was impressive today. And Alabama was valiant. They came roaring back, got the game tied. Game was 65 all, 68 all, and then Auburn pulled away at the end, making shots, making free throws, getting stops.
Yep.
I mean, you better come with a helmet and shoulder pads into the lane with those shot blockers, Jason. Just one more time.
No doubt. And again, they can play on the perimeter. They can play in the interior. They've got Cardwell. They've got Broom. They've got some bench guys. Mazzaro's a good defender. Mazzaro had 15 points or so today. Denver Jones is kind of their defensive guy. He locked down Mark Sears for most of the game today. They've got all the elements you need to win a national title, and they got a coach who can win a national title, in my view.
No doubt. We haven't mentioned Duke and Cooper Flagg and company destroyed Stanford this afternoon. More on that in a little bit. Again, it's college basketball coast to coast. A little earlier in the evening, Jason, we did speak with our insider, our analyst, Adam Zagoria, was right there on hand for the Seton Hall upset of UConn. Better than you and me going over that crazy finish. Let's hear from Adam, who was in the Rock, the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey this afternoon, where UConn let it get away not once but twice and eventually lost in this one this afternoon in the Wild Big East. Let's go to that conversation as we rock on here on college basketball coast to coast on this Saturday nightcap. As promised, he was OL on location for not just one of the upsets of the day, but one of the upsets, I have to say, of this college season, particularly when UConn, Adam Zagoria, goes all the way out to beat Creighton. Then for whatever reason, they can't beat Seton Hall. This is 4 years in a row that the Hall has gotten them. They got them in overtime today in a crazy game. You were right there. Welcome aboard on College Basketball Coast to Coast, the live show here on this Saturday night. Where do we begin? Do we begin just with the end? And is it a steal? Did they steal that game? Did you sense that Seton Hall today? They took it.
Yeah, I mean, it's for whatever reason, TJ, Seton Hall seems to have UConn's number in Newark at the Prudential Center. I mean, this is 4 years in a row, like you said, they've beaten them there. And, it's a big win for Shaheen Holloway and the Pirates. They're in last place in the Big East, but I'm sure if you're the other Big East teams right now, you're thinking, man, I'm not sure I want to play this team in the Big East tournament. And for Connecticut, Danny came in there and just said, they deserve to win the game. We didn't put it away. I mean, UConn had trouble inbounding the ball. They turned it over several times. Inbounding it, they missed a dunk. They were up by 5 at the end of regulation and couldn't hold on. They were up by 4 in the overtime and couldn't hold on. And just, a little inside baseball, like as a writer and a journalist at the game, like a game like that is kind of stressful to write, because you're used to sort of like, okay, I know what I'm writing here, but you had to have basically 2 leads ready to go there. Seton Hall wins and UConn wins.
So let's pick up on that point because you do a tremendous job and you have for many years and you're writing now with NJ.com as well as the Zags blog. To that point, you're formulating in your brain and you're writing for UConn has survived this. They've stopped the chaotic mojo against them, and then suddenly Alex Caravan can't get the ball inbounds, and Seton Hall has life, and now you're going into the mode of the opposite. They're about to lose again potentially here, and Seton Hall becomes a story. Just give us a little more on that.
Yeah, I mean, as a writer, like I had kind of 2 leads ready to go, and then I'm like deleting the Seton Hall's going to win lead. I had a death, taxes, Seton Hall beats UConn in Newark lead that I eventually went with, but I'm cutting and pasting that. I'm moving it out to another file. And then you got to keep your eye on the game and write the running. And then you got to update it afterwards with quotes from, the players and the coaches. So, it's a little stressful. So
no doubt. All right, back to that chaotic ending, because it's actually a broken play where Seton Hall almost got the 2-handed dunk and didn't, kept the ball, and then it's Dylan Adewusu with a hand in his face, Adam. What's your vantage point? Were you on that side of the floor or the other side of the floor, and did that look good all the way live?
Yeah, I was on that side of the floor. It was a broken play. He was open on the right side. They kicked it out to him. And this is a kid who had missed 6 of the last 8 games with an ankle, only had 2 points in the first half, and then had 11 of his 13 in the second half in the overtime. So, Danny said, like, I don't like to lose, but if I'm going to lose to somebody, I'd rather it be my brother or Shaheen. So, I think the Big East coaches kind of feel good for Shaheen and respect him, and they know it's been a tough year there.
Again, I love Adam Zagoria's insight. If you're only hearing us on podcast, come find the video on YouTube and all the social media platforms as we do this live on Saturday. If you're hearing it after the fact, it's a live show on Saturday. Follow up. Danny Hurley went to Seton Hall, and Shaheen Holloway said the struggles they've had, it was a 9-game losing streak. He has repeatedly been in contact with Danny Hurley, who's been encouraging him. Speak more to what you found out after the game about all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Danny said about a year ago that when he retires, he's going to donate to Seton Hall's NIL, which is, you don't hear a coach from school A say he's going to donate to school B's NIL too often. But of course, Danny is from Jersey City and he went to Seton Hall. He's been very supportive of Shaheen. Danny told us this week on a conference call that he speaks to Shaheen occasionally to offer him support. And then Shah said after the game that he and Dan have talked, and Dan's a good sounding board for him, and he's supported him. And, it's just a good bond. I think those Big East coaches are on a group text, and they support each other when they're not, playing each other.
Love the insight that you have. All right, so take us to the frantic finish. Again, UConn can't get the ball in. They finally do, and solo ball, the player gets stripped, and it's a broken play again by Coleman, who misses the initial layup and then puts it in with UConn out of timeouts. I mean, this is not even March. Welcome to the craziness that's normally reserved for March on that ending, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, look, the big picture I can give is that watching this UConn team this is not a team that looks like it's going to win a third straight national championship, right?
Right.
They had trouble getting the ball in bounds. Look, it happens. Seton Hall plays tremendous pressure defense, but you don't come away from that game thinking this UConn team is, going to win or even be a Final Four team. Now that can change in the next month. Obviously, they got Liam McNeely back, but yeah, the end of the game, just a lot of broken plays. Seton Hall forced a turnover there in the paint. They get it to Scotty Middleton, an Ohio State transfer. Garway Dual, by the way, a Providence transfer, got that steal at the end. Middleton gets it. Middleton misses a layup. Then he gets the tip in at the end, Ohio State transfer. It's just a wild, crazy ending and, devastating loss for UConn, big win for Seton Hall.
And Diarra did have a look from midcourt a la Caleb Love that hit the front of the rim. I thought maybe that was going in for a half. Did you think for a half second Diarra for the win for UConn had a chance?
Yes. Yeah, for half a second, sure, yes.
It did not. Crazy. All right, two more things because I know you've had a busy day. And again, read more from Adam at nj.com. All the way back at the beginning of the day, the NCAA selection committee, the men's selection committee chaired by Bubba Cunningham, the North Carolina athletic director, did the top 16 bracket reveal, the top 4 seeds in each part of the NCAA tournament bracket. So interesting. The SEC dominated it. The Big 12 and the Big 10 are in there. And then St. John's, who's in action tomorrow with Creighton Sunday afternoon, as we do this live on Saturday night, they do sneak in as the 16th team, the 4th of the 4 seeds. What was your reaction when you saw that with the Johnnies and Rick Pitino?
Yeah, it's funny you said all the way back at the beginning of the day. This is
seems like it was Tuesday, doesn't it?
This is the second week in a row that something that happens at like noon or 1 seems like it was on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that what was funny about that bracket reveal was Bubba Cunningham, the North Carolina AD, did not want to mention the name of Duke, and he had to hand off Duke as the number 1 seed to Adam from CBS Sports there.
Right.
But yeah, the SEC's got 3 number 1 seeds as we expected. Auburn goes on to beat Alabama here later in the day. The 2 of them are 1s. Florida's a 1. The SEC right now, 3 number 1 seeds. They have 3 teams, TJ, that could get to a Final Four. The only conference that I'm aware of, or the last conference, put 3 teams in the Final Four is the Big East.
That's correct.
Way back in 1985.
This is the 40th anniversary, and St. John's was one of the teams.
Yeah, when, of course, Villanova and Ed Pinckney beat Georgetown in the final. St. John's is the 4 seed in the East. You could have, if that happened, a potential Sweet 16 between Cooper Flagg and Duke and Rick Pitino and St. John's here in Newark, which would be pretty awesome. I actually have a steak dinner bet on whether that's going to happen. One of my colleagues.
Uh-huh.
I think it'll be great if we get Cooper Flagg and Duke in Newark. And for St. John's, just a monster game on Sunday with Creighton. If Creighton wins that game, they'll have the season sweep of the Johnnies, and they'll be in first place in the Big East. If St. John's wins, they create a 2-game separation. I think St. John's, if they win the Big East regular season and, say, get to the final of the Big East tournament, could move up to be like a 3 seed. St. John's is going to be one of these teams that nobody wants to play just because of their defensive pressure.
And follow up on that again, both these teams off of losses, but we know St. John's for the toughness, the defense. We saw that in the win at UConn last Friday night. You were right there, but struggling shooting the ball, struggling at the foul line, that can be your undoing. How concerned should we be come March right now that yes, St. John's has been winning, but in these one and done scenarios, not being able to consistently hit threes and consistently shooting poorly from the foul line late in games, that can haunt you, can it not?
Yeah, and also we should point out they're without veteran guard Davon Smith. He's a Utah transfer. Rick told us this week that he's out for this game, and he could be out for the rest of the regular season. Now, what that does is it makes Kadari Richmond have to play, just about 40 minutes at the point. And Rick pretty much said, I don't have a bench to press. He's going to go with his starters. But yeah, to your point, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. They don't shoot it well. Kadari doesn't shoot it well. They're known for their physicality, their defense, their rebounding, and they're going to beat teams with that. If somehow they could learn how to shoot or get somebody hot from three,
Yeah,
they're a really dangerous team, but they don't have that right now.
we
Creighton,
shall see.
Creighton's always a really scary offensive team, offensively under Greg McDermott. I'm not saying I know anything about Indiana, and somebody threw this out today, but how about Greg McDermott? Maybe just as a possibility as an Indiana coach.
Yep.
If he was interested, he's probably got a great deal at Creighton, but he plays a fun up-tempo style for sure.
And they have won a ton there, including in the NCAA tournament. We shall see what happens with St. John's and Creighton on Sunday afternoon. With that, I'm going to let you depart. Read him in NJ.com as well as the Zags blog. It's only going to get crazier from here. It was already a crazy Saturday with the upset of Seton Hall against UConn. You were right there in Newark. All right, reload, rest, and reload for the Garden. By the way, as you depart, how tough is that ticket at the Garden tomorrow? It has become a tough ticket, yes, for St. John's at the Garden, big time.
Close to a sellout. I was told the other day it's not a sellout yet. Now next Sunday, a week from Sunday, Dan Hurley and UConn play Rick Pitino and St. John's in a new.
Good luck getting a ticket. Yeah.
That's going to be a sellout.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see what kind of crowd they have tomorrow because they've been getting 19,000 for these games, including on the Saturday game with Providence a couple of weeks ago. It is electric right now for St. John's basketball. All right, you'll be recharge the batteries. You'll be ready to go Sunday afternoon. We'll read you on NJ.com, the Zags blog as well, zagsblog.com. Thank you, Adam Zagoria. Get some rest.
Thanks, brother. Have a good night.
Love Adam's insight always here, Jason Powers, as he joined me just a little earlier in the evening. We are live here on College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms, on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter. Love him being right there for the Seton Hall win. I mean, go figure UConn. They get a road win at Marquette. They come back home and St. John's beats them last Friday night. They then go to Omaha and snap Creighton's 9-game win streak.
Yep.
And then they can't beat the worst team in the Big East. They lost to the 224, the 224th team, according to the net metrics, the net ranking from the NCAA today. Wow. Follow up from you?
Bad loss. And, this is just, again, a little humble pie for Danny Hurley for all the, he ain't afraid to bloviate when his team wins a game, but again, hopefully they're just not as good as they're nowhere near what they were the last couple of years with the experience and the size. They got good player. McNeely's the kind of guy who could win them a game in the tournament, maybe get them to the Sweet 16, but I don't think they're going to go any further than that at best. It's a rebuild year, and we'll see. I'm going to tell you. I don't think Danny Hurley will be there in 3 years. I think he'll either be in the NBA or somewhere. I just have a funny feeling he won't be there in 3 years.
That he just melts down. I mean, they've won national titles, but we'll see. By the way, we've been mentioning in the nighttime action, Michigan State, a tremendous win for them at Illinois. Texas has just outplayed Kentucky in the final 4 minutes of the game to beat Kentucky at home. Large win for Rodney Terry. Against Kentucky. I mean, I know we're in the South. You and I are both in Tampa Bay in Florida. I realize there's the Big East, there's the Big 10, there's the Big 12. We've got these Western teams that are all playing in different conferences. Matt Zimick will be with us in a few minutes to talk about the West. But my Lord, is the SEC tournament going to be a battle royal like pro wrestling or in the octagon for UFC? Just crazy.
Bloodbath.
It's almost survival for whoever gets to the semifinal or the championship game, much less who wins it, right?
And I wonder what the Alabamas and the Auburns, I know they want to win the tournament. I know that's always great prestige, but do you almost take the long game approach of, I don't want to play 4 rock fights in a weekend and have to turn around and play an NCAA tournament game the next week. So does maybe the top couple teams in that league, the Florida, Alabama, Auburns, maybe take it easy a little bit, meaning, yeah, you want to win a game or two, but maybe you don't want to have to play 4 games in 4 days in that kind of competitive environment. I don't know. Be interesting to see what happens. Another point I like that Adam made, that I heard another guy that I know made the same comment about the Indiana job on my Press Box radio show that I do. Kevin Brockway, who covers Florida and used to work in the used to cover IU in Bloomington. He also brought up Greg McDermott as a possible name that would be a good potential fit there in Bloomington.
And sure, they can go that route. Buzz Williams' name is going to be brought up from Texas A&M because he's had previous success at Marquette and Virginia Tech. He's kind of been a vagabond.
Nick Cronin
from UCLA. I know when Matt Zimick gets on, he's going to mention that name too. By the way, the comments from Brad Stevens when reached by Jeff Goodman, who's in Boston, he's based out of the North. He says, first of all, whenever these guys say it's definitely not happening, Nick Saban lied for 6 weeks that he was not taking the Alabama job and then took it. Settle down with guys saying they're not going to take a job and then they take it. But the comment he gave to Jeff Goodman was about how happy he and his family are in Boston. It was not an unequivocal, I'm not going back to college coaching. I'm not taking the Indiana job. I'm going to be with the Celtics forever. This is what I want to do. He was not anywhere near that emphatic about staying. Stay tuned. That's just an interesting name. Maybe they don't want Brad Stevens at Indiana. I don't know. But this is the same athletic director as we've talked, and you're an Indiana grad school guy. Same AD that wanted to keep Mike Woodson for one more year and didn't want Dusty May.
Right.
When Dusty May has Indiana roots and had coached for Bob Knight and was on the move and ends up at your rival Michigan and is beating you last weekend at Assembly Hall. So,
and one more name. We talked to Tim Brando on the radio show this week as well. He mentioned, do they go back to the well and finally bring Steve Alford home potentially out at Nevada?
Right
out there, do you make the call to a guy like Steve Alford who still has plenty of prestige and variety?
With all of the dads and all of the granddads and all of the uncles, they all remember Alford. The problem is the kids today don't remember Alford. They don't know anything about him being an Indiana player.
But he plays an exciting brand of basketball, offensive guy. Again, I think that would be some name recognition if you had to go that route as well.
That's the voice of Jason Powers. If you're hearing us on the podcast, this is our Saturday Nightcap show that we're live on Saturday nights, obviously, recapping another day in college basketball that has seen a lot of craziness. Follow Jason at JPO Sports. TJ Reeves with you as well as we do this live. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, finding us. Before we bring Matt on, by the way, I'm going to have some gripes to air out before the show is over, and I want you guys to weigh in on this. We should mention
Festivus, grievances on Festivus.
Yes, the airing of the grievances like Festivus. we got to go over several of them. We got to go over this, a couple of quick things. All right, so Duke annihilated Stanford today. Cooper Flagg, Tyrese Proctor combined for almost 60 of the points in the game. I thought this would be a little more competitive. I know Duke is off the loss to Clemson last Saturday, but this is clearly the best team in the ACC. What's their ceiling, real quick? Your thought?
Oh, I think they're a Final Four kind of team, and then Flagg, and they got enough other guys around Flagg that can pick up the slack if Flagg is struggling, and if Flagg again, Zagoria has talked to us in weeks past. Flagg's not afraid to pass the ball either. He's not afraid to get other guys involved. No, Duke definitely is a Final Four team. And the ACC is way down. Carolina struggled tonight at Syracuse. What is going on at Carolina? I know, golly, they are laboring, but that's probably a 4-team league bid. Maybe Duke, maybe probably Clemson, maybe SMU, and then maybe Wake Forest. So you're probably looking at maybe 4. But yeah, Duke's definitely a Final 8, Final 4 kind of team.
Yeah, definitely Duke, Clemson, who won today at Florida State, definitely Louisville, and Wake Forest, by the way. Wake Forest beat SMU at SMU tonight, and that helps them. That's a top 40 quad 1 road win, but Wake has probably still got more work to do to grab a spot as the 4th ACC team or not. And one more here while we're talking about this. How about Houston again? If you're just joining us, they go out and beat Arizona. This is on the heels of having won at Kansas earlier in the year. That is 11 straight road wins for Kelvin Sampson's team dating back to last season in the Big 12. They have been not just neutral floor games away from home games, 11 straight road wins in a tough conference like the Big 12. This looks like a Final Four team again with that win early today at Arizona. Real quick.
No doubt. And winning at McHale Center is never easy. Matt Zemek can comment on that when we have him on. But I mean, Arizona's got a good team. They're a second weekend team in the Big 12. And again, Kelvin Sampson just rock fight. He knows how to grind out these low possession games, low scoring game. I know Arizona likes to play up and down a little bit more, but give Houston credit. They just have dudes that know how to win games. They're not the most talented team, but they got dudes that know how to win games.
Love it. Love all the insight.
How about Michigan State comes back from 16 down at the half in Champaign to win the game by double digits?
Another road win. Izzo's team, again, off the loss at home to Indiana. They bounce back, and the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis is going to be knocked down, drag out as well with what Wisconsin did at Purdue and what Michigan State did tonight to Illinois. What a battle. By the way, we need to mention on college basketball coast to coast that we are sponsored in part by Go Sleeves. Jason Powers, we say this, that if you are looking for therapeutic sleeves to help the knees, the elbow, the calves, if you need help with recovery, with inflammation, they've got kinesiology technology, and we love the Go Sleeves for any of those activities. If you're a weekend warrior basketball player, pickleball, Jason.
Here's mine. Here's mine, TJ Reeves, right here, buddy.
Hold that sleeve up. There it is.
Right here, boys and girls.
We're seeing that sleeve. Right here on the screen, you're watching as well that if you're a biker, a tennis player, pickleball player, runner, basketball player, golfer, weekend warrior sleeves for the knees, the calves, the elbow. We remind you as well, we've got our promo code, GoSleeves.com/TJ. It is go time with Go Sleeves. They are sponsors of ours right here on college basketball coast to coast. Kinesiology technology. Make it a little closer to the camera there. You'll see the
excellent support for the knee. I got a bulky left knee and I officiate. Excellent support for the knee.
He can testify on the kinesiology technology. GoSleeves.com/TJ for a discount. Check them out for the knees, the elbows. They've got other athletic wear with a therapeutic shirt, a therapeutic hamstring, pair of athletic shorts. You'll love all of the apparel. It's not just fashion with them. It helps with inflammation and helps with recovery at Go Sleeves. It is go time with Go Sleeves, so a little plug on that. Without any further delay, can we bring this guy on?
The bureau chief.
We have got to get to the West Coast bureau chief, or at least Western Rockies bureau chief. Hello, Matt Zemek. Welcome to college basketball coast to coast on another Saturday nightcap. It's a shame that we have nothing to talk about on the heels of this latest Saturday, the third Saturday in February. How are you, my friend? Where do you want to begin with all the mayhem that we have seen on this Saturday? Matt, welcome.
Thanks. And I think, so many violent late swings. Like it looked like Kentucky was beating Texas with the late 9-0 run. Oklahoma leads LSU by 5 with 35 seconds left. And LSU player scores 7 points in 27 seconds. So the Sooners are basically off the bubble now. That bubble's popped. And part of all these late swings and a lot of these results, you're seeing coaches basically arriving at the end of the line. Like I think Porter Moser, if he doesn't get fired at Oklahoma, like he needs to, as the jargon goes, seek new opportunities somewhere else. I think like that tenure has played itself out. I think Johnny Dawkins, UCF loses to Colorado. That's Colorado's first Big 12 win. I think that's played out. He's been there forever. Time to get a new coach there. So a lot of coaches really arriving at, in my mind, the end of the line. And, maybe they stick around for one more year, but like the fans are they're done. Like Oklahoma fans are done.
Right.
Porter Moser. So you got to think that if the AD isn't willing to fire the coach, you know what? This is time for a career reset. The coach needs to look for an escape hatch, and find somewhere else to go. We see this all the time in both football and basketball. So a number of coaches on Saturday, they just hit the end of the road at their current jobs.
I'm going to keep giving you some rapid fire topics. All right. So Houston earlier today has beaten Arizona on the road. What more can we continue to say about the toughness, the defense? Defense travels on the road. They win at Arizona in a game that could have gone either way. Matt, go ahead.
With Arizona, I'm down here in Phoenix. I followed U of A basketball for a long time. It's the same old story. Caleb Love, and whether he makes threes or not, it's just way too central a determinant factor for Arizona basketball. They just have to have more scorers, more options in the mix on offense. It's just way too dependent on Caleb Love. And, Tommy Lloyd, he got this team to be really good this season. And it's a credit to him because, I don't see the same talent that existed on previous U of A rosters. Omar Ballo, he's now at Indiana. They could use him in the middle. Like his brawn really could have helped out against Houston. But Caleb Love, his limitations, and also Arizona missed a pile of foul shots. Free throw awareness. Arizona's not ready for March, and that definitely was a central factor in that loss to Houston.
Jason Powers, get in here.
One more coach do we think of right in your neighborhood, Matt Zemek? Are the fans in Tempe sick of Bobby Hurley?
They're pretty much at that point, and I think that at ASU, at Arizona State, lost to TCU tonight. Arizona State hasn't won at home in like 6 weeks. He might get one more year because, when you compare him to other ASU head coaches, Herb Sendek, Rob Evans, other guys through the years, Hurley's gotten to the NCAA tournament more times than those guys. That might buy him one more year. But fans are tired of the act. And one big note from this game against TCU, which obviously I wouldn't expect either you, TJ, or Jason to be following this. Like you had bigger things to do.
Pac-12 network. It's not on the Pac-12 network.
Yeah, they don't even have a.
Yeah,
they don't even
you
have
had
a channel.
Kentucky, Texas to look at. You had Michigan State, Illinois to look at. I was, of course, following TCU, ASU. One other note: Adam Miller got ejected. That's his second ejection of the season. Arizona State has had 4 players get ejected. And I'm not talking about disqualified for a 5th personal foul. 4 ejections this year since the start of the new calendar year. And that just plays right into the point that Bobby Hurley is a hothead and he can't control his team. It's terrible optics for a coach whose team has gone straight downward after what was a very good November. Arizona State thrashed a couple of possible conference champions, thrashed St. Mary's, thrashed New Mexico in late November, looked like a tournament team, and it has come all tumbling down. So Bobby Hurley, he's got to be thinking, do I want to stay in Tempe or do I want my own escape hatch?
How about the team that we maybe the most under the radar team in America had their biggest road win in the history of their program? How about Texas Tech?
Yes, they keep rolling in the Big 12.
Yeah, and to me, if I'm at Villanova, if I'm at Indiana, obviously I'm going to make the really big hitters say no, but Jason, you're a big Indiana guy. Brad Stevens has closed the door. But
I don't
according to TJ Reeves, he has
that door. I don't think that door's closed. You heard what I said backstage. You heard what I said backstage, did you not? Nick Saban lied for 6 weeks that he was not taking the Alabama job. And that statement is not a flat, I'm not taking the Indiana job. It was, I love being in Boston. They all say that. So stay tuned. I don't know that the door is closed. That's me speculating.
Yep. So if you are Indiana and if you are Villanova, because Villanova got trounced by Providence, I don't see how you keep Kyle Neptune at this point. You ask the big hitters, like you ask Buzz Williams, you ask some of the other really, really good coaches that aren't already at blue blood programs. But on the matter of Texas Tech, Grant McCasland,
yep,
real deal. real deal. And remember, he wasn't even on the court when Texas Tech beat Houston, but like he inspired his team to beat Houston on the road with, one of their best players having been tossed unfairly. We covered that here on college basketball coast to coast when it happened. So Grant McCasland, if I'm an AD at a high profile basketball school needing a coach, I'm going there if one of the really big home run hitters turns me down.
Several of our colleagues are weighing in. My phone is going crazy. They're not commenting where we can see it all, but our colleague Bart Heitch is watching, and he has sent me 3 times, Chris Beard will be the Indiana coach. Chris Beard will be the Indiana coach. Heitch, I get it. You think Chris Beard is going to be the Indiana coach? I don't know. I mean, Beard has moved around like the offering plate at church over the last few years. So I don't know if he's going to be the Indiana coach leaving from Ole Miss, but Bart seems to think that after Mississippi State beat them tonight. I want to stay in the Big Ten. I want to stay in the Big Ten. I want to move off the coaching stuff. I want to move on to other stuff. So hang in there. Let's move to Wisconsin and what they did at Purdue. Matt, follow up on this. Jason and I talked about it earlier. How impressive was this?
To me, Greg Gard, in the National Coach of the Year race, he's got to be top 5. You have to have a place for him somewhere in the top 5. Now, where that is, relative to, my favorite is still probably Pat Kelsey, but Rick Pitino's in the mix. Todd Golden of Florida is in the mix. But you have to have a place for Greg Gard. Not just that Wisconsin's winning, not just that Wisconsin, whacks Purdue in Mackey Arena, not just that Wisconsin's going to get a pretty solid seed in the NCAA tournament, probably like a 4, I'd say at this point. But it's also that, we know what Wisconsin basketball has generally looked like under Greg Gard and under Bo Ryan and under Dick Bennett. And this is not that. Greg Gard, he didn't just find solutions. He found a way to reinvent Wisconsin and the way it played. Like, this has been a high octane offense all season long. Remember, scoring over 100 against Arizona. They've been lighting it up since late November, early December. So not just the improvement, not just the winning, but doing it in a very different way relative to what we normally expect from Wisconsin. So that takes coaching skill. That takes a lot of creativity and roster assembly and management. Greg Gard's been a rock star this season.
And self-reflection to realize that's not going to work in the NIL world and the transfer portal world, trying to win every game 60-58.
To that point, I know this is now the stat that in the last 8 games they've played, they've scored 75 or more in 7 of them, including today when they got over 90. How they play, shooting early in the shot clock, 3-point volume, they are a team to look out for come March. I'm saying that with a proven coach that's won games in March in Gard. And Purdue is really good too. And the Big Ten, again, go figure, where Purdue couldn't close Michigan earlier in the week. Indiana beats Michigan State, and Illinois beats UCLA middle of the week. And now Purdue loses and Illinois loses. And who's the other team? I confused myself. The third team that lost out of that, UCLA, won in the bounce back with Indiana. While we have the West Coast bureau chief here, let's talk about that UCLA win and a bounce back at Indiana here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. Matt, how impressive was that Friday night? That game could have gone either way. Indiana plays everybody tough. They had beaten Michigan State. It was close, and UCLA was better at Assembly Hall. Give us a thought or two on that, if you would.
Well, given the state of Indiana basketball under Mike Woodson, I think I went into that game saying, "Hey, if you're UCLA, you have to win this game," and the Bruins did, and it wasn't pretty and it wasn't easy. They have to work on their free throws as well. That game remained tighter than it probably should have been at the very end. But you know what? The thing to say about Mick Cronin and UCLA this season is that, remember, he threw his team under the bus. UCLA lost 4 straight games, and Mick Cronin just tears his team apart, tears his assistants apart, and we wondered, is this going to have the right effect? And There was another week after that sermon, after that fire and brimstone performance. There was another week in which the wins still weren't coming, but eventually it turned around. And so Mick Cronin deserves credit. And I know we all get on him for, he's going to throw someone under the bus at some point.
I think we're still good. Jason, you still got me? I didn't get the rest of Matt's answer, but I think we pretty much got the answer on Cronin obviously getting through to his own team. Matt will rejoin us in a moment. I know I hate to keep beating up on you. I know you're an Indiana guy, but UCLA deserves a lot of credit because Indiana played hard, made shots, etc. Matt's back with us. Matt, we got the entire point about Cronin getting the point across, but Jason, say something about the Bruins getting that road win and a bounce back.
These are the kind of games you got to win this time of year. It's like Matt said, it's not going to be pretty. Indiana's been competitive. They have not been getting blown out. They've been playing tough. That's still a tough place to play. Say what you want. That's still a tough place to play at Assembly Hall. They went to Michigan State and won midweek, so give them credit, Indiana credit for that. But yeah, I mean, Cronin's a good coach, man. We know this guy can coach tournament time. He's got players at UCLA. It's not like they don't have players. Just a matter of whether those guys can play the way Cronin kind of wants them to play and buy in.
One more point about all of this here. Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis. Again, somebody could really make a move. I know USC, you write the USC Trojans Wire, they lost to Minnesota today, but they've got 2 or 3 wins. I know. Oregon out west. They won some games early. They've now gone into a swoon. I mean, there are going to be teams that are going to be able to pull upsets over the 24, 38, 36, 48 hour period here in this Big Ten tournament that might help their resume, right, Matt, including some Western teams, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten's looking like 8 to 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. And so when you get to the Big Ten tournament and you get to the quarterfinals, pretty much every game is going to involve an NCAA tournament level team over another. So for the teams at the back end that are on the bubble or are close to the bubble, games won in the Big Ten tournament are going to carry value. And this is in marked contrast to what we're going to see and what we are seeing in the ACC. I know you mentioned the Wake Forest SMU result. That's a big one for Wake after the loss to Florida State. But Wake Forest, it can't lose to North Carolina State or Virginia or Georgia Tech. Any loss in one of those games, it's basically a loss avoidance game. It's not so much you get positive value from the win, you avoid a negative fall. Wake has to walk that tightrope and win all of those loss avoidance games. But in the Big Ten and especially the SEC, these games are going to at tournament time and in the next few weeks, there are going to be so many opportunities to go up the ladder, like what we saw with Texas tonight. Texas zooms up several spots due to the win over Kentucky, all while Oklahoma, Georgia, and Arkansas lose. So like Texas's odds of making the NCAA tournament skyrocketed today, not just because of where the Longhorns are, but because 3 other SEC bubble teams plummeted. So that's part of the story in the Big Ten, that you're going to get quality win chances at the tournament and in the coming weeks.
A team like Nebraska, who's been hovering right there on that bubble, maybe a team like Minnesota, those are the kind of teams that maybe have, like TJ says, can make a little noise in that tournament, win a couple games.
I mean, examples also like Arkansas, you mentioned Wake Forest, any of these teams that are around first 4 out, next 4 out, or maybe last 4 in. Cincinnati, BYU. I know our buddy Chris Dauber team with bloggingthebracket.com keeps going down the list of teams like Arkansas, Cincinnati,
San Francisco
BYU.
Out west. Maybe a team like San Francisco.
San Francisco out west, where they could score a couple of big wins in the West Coast Conference tournament on a neutral floor, and maybe that ends up meaning something. Same thing with Indiana, maybe at the Big Ten tournament. If they get a couple of wins against important teams, it could help their cause. We shall see. I want to cover a couple more things, Matt Zimick, before we move on here on college basketball coast to coast. Let's go back to what Jason and I were talking about, and that's the committee revealing the 16 top teams they had They put them in the 4 brackets 1 through 4. What were your thoughts? Give me a couple of overall thoughts. The selection committee chair, Bubba Cunningham, was sitting live on CBS. We all know this is going to change some over the next 3 or 4 weeks, but they began doing this bracket reveal for publicity reasons and to hype it up a few years ago. They revealed it today. It's the only time they're going to give us a peek before the actual bracket 4 weeks from now. Matt, what did you think about what you saw?
Well, I mean, 3 SEC teams on the top line. That's one big story. So that means at least one SEC team is going to be shipped to a Western regional, most likely. Like I highly doubt that Duke would go west. So
Florida.
at least one SEC
Florida
team
was the West. I think Florida was the initial West Coast. I think today, if I'm correct.
Yeah. And another note, I saw John Rothstein tweet about this, that St. John's, if St. John's can play its way up to a 2 seed, or at least if St. John's can win the Big East championship, and we have that big Sunday game against Creighton, which is going to be enormous in that regard. If St. John's can boost its position in the 4 weeks leading up to Selection Sunday. There's a first round opening weekend in, I believe, Providence, and then there's the regional. Like St. John's is in a position to potentially stay very, very close to home in the East. So, for St. John's and other teams like that, there's real incentive to boost your seed, boost your place on the seed list, and get a very favorable pair of geographical placements in the bracket. First weekend, second weekend to get to San Antonio.
And again, for St. John's, as Adam said, they have Creighton on Sunday at the Garden. They have UConn at the Garden next weekend. So you got to take advantage of those opportunities if they want to move up on the seed line, especially with the SEC strength. I mean, the SEC literally is going to have 6 teams on the top 2 lines, it looks like. 5 for sure, maybe 6. So to crack that, just because of the strength of all of their victories, you're going to have to win the biggest games on your schedule if you're St. John's or if you're Purdue or you're Wisconsin coming down the stretch of the season, Houston,
Arizona,
some of the different teams.
Texas Tech.
Some of those teams as well, or Duke. Duke's going to be there. Duke, though, doesn't really have a killer game down the stretch of the regular season. It's going to be the ACC tournament, but I would have to think they're ensconced. I'll use that word on college basketball coast to coast right now as one of the 1 seeds, 2 seed at the worst.
Yes.
At the worst for Duke right about now. All right, couple of more things that I want to go over here before we're done. I've got a couple of gripes, and Matt and I were talking about this off the air. TJ airing grievances on college basketball coast to coast. I want Jason and Matt's thoughts. Gripe number 1, we are still taking way too long at the review table.
Yes.
I have said for years, advocating on this platform, places like TuneIn, on Fox Sports Radio, there should be a mandated time limit like 90 seconds. Maybe Matt and Jason, you believe it should be 60 seconds to look at the replay and figure it out in 60 or 90 seconds, and that should be it. Boys, go around the room. Matt first. What about shortening the length of these reviews that age us greatly, just sitting and watching them go on and on?
Totally agree. It's the Zapruder film, right? It's 1963 on the grassy knoll every time a ball goes off a couple fingertips. So I think 90 seconds is fair. I think that gives a little bit of breathing room, but yet it still caps the process. But the other thing, the rule book needs to be rewritten for what I call an impetus of the ball rule. In other words, the impetus of the ball rule should be inserted into the rule book, meaning if you knock the ball out of someone's hand, if you disrupt the dribble, it doesn't matter if the ball is peeled off the fingernail of the dribbler. If we had an impetus of the ball rule, it means the guy who's swiping at the ball, it's out of bounds off that person. So then that would reduce the amount of reviews we would need to have. Jason.
No, I'm with you. I mean, again, that Alabama-Auburn game, there were 4 reviews in the last minute and a half of that game, and 3 of them were just ridiculous. I mean, what are we doing?
Yes.
Keep it moving. I mean, it should be simple.
They had a review on the Wisconsin-Purdue game near the end, still a close game, and I thought Bill Raftery, Jason, I don't know if you saw this, was going to lose his mind on how long they stayed at the table to go over this. You're destroying the continuity at the end of the games, Jason.
Man.
I didn't mean to go ahead.
No, it makes a great point. I mean, Billis made the comment in the Alabama-Auburn game, just takes the air out of the building when you still got a competitive game. Maybe you reduce the reviews, maybe the last minute of the game instead of 2 minutes. I mean, I don't know, but you're right. We got to stop. We got to stop giving the officials too many crutches to go to the monitor. That's the problem.
All right, so there's a good gripe. I got another gripe or two while I've got Matt here, especially. There are several advocating for this. Seth Davis of CBS and his own outlet now, the Hoops HQ, is his latest outlet. He's formerly Sports Illustrated, formerly The Athletic. He's banging the drum to add 8 more teams. There are some advocates that want to add 28 more teams, a 96-team field. You see on the screen if you're with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast, but if you cannot see it because you're on podcast, I put the words zero need. There is zero need either from a competitive standpoint or a financial standpoint to expand this tournament. The only people talking about this are coaches and ex-coaches that wanted more spots so that they could get their bonus in their contract and or have a chance to win NCAA tournament games because you let more people in. Nobody else is clamoring for this. There's my take. Matt, you first, then Jason.
Okay. I'm going to try and provide a measured in-between kind of point because I don't automatically reflexively agree with the idea that the tournament doesn't need expansion, but I would agree that we don't need to have, a team that's 16-12 overall and 6-10 in a Power 4 conference. We definitely don't need more of those teams. But I've believed for several years, guys, that let's look at Drake, for example. If Drake makes the Missouri Valley final and loses and doesn't get in at the and it's because a team that's 7-9 in the Big Ten gets in, that's wrong. So like the Drakes of the world, those really, really strong mid-major conference champions, they don't get the benefit of the doubt against that middling, 17-13 Big Ten or SEC team. So I've believed for several years that we should have a 72-team tournament. So in other words, you're adding just 4 spots, and basically you turn what is currently the first 4 in Dayton into the Great 8. You're adding more bubble games, and the bubble game should precisely be a Drake-style team, a mid-major conference champion against one of those bubble teams from a power conference. All 4 games. You play 4 games in Dayton, and they're all on one side mid-major champions, on the other side 17-18 win power conference teams. So that is the small, narrow, specific, and criteria-based expansion that I believe should exist. But we definitely don't need more average power conference teams. No need for that. That's where I'm going to fully agree.
I think you have made a very compelling argument. I'll follow up after Jason sounds off. I say zero need for expansion of the NCAA tournament beyond 68 teams. Where do you come down, Jason Powers?
I'm with you, TJ. And people have to remember, every team makes the tournament. Every team gets a chance to win their conference tournament to get in. So it's not like you can say the Mississippi Valley States of the world or the Tulsas of the world or the UABs of the world. They all get a chance to win 3 games in a row on a neutral court. Go win 3 games in a row. If you're in the MAC, if you're the Ionas of the world, if you're the Drakes of the world. I know it stinks that you don't get opportunities to play more often, but go win 3 games in a row. Sorry.
All right, so there's his feeling. And back to your point, very measured, very compelling. The problem is they're going to come back as the committee and say, we shouldn't be restricted about who we put in. And so therefore, what you said at the very end is going to happen is you have this idea of 4 more teams with include the little guy, include the mid-major guy. They'll include 3 of the Power 5 is what they will include.
Yeah.
And if you expand it to 96 with 28 more teams, 22 of them are going to be the Power 5. It's not going to be the little guy that's going to be benefiting from that. It might even be 24 some years of the 28 would be that.
Absolutely. So I want to just nail this down. Like if you expand, it has to be specific set aside bids for.
I love the ideal. I love your ideal. I got you.
The 4 extra bids.
I love your ideal.
Champs.
I love your ideal, but they're not in practicality. They're not going to do that with this.
That's not what they're talking about. No, you're right.
And there's not a financial reason that you have to do this because they're already making a couple of $1 billion, the most lucrative thing the NCAA tournament does. And if you want more money, put it up for renegotiation by opting out of the deal and watch how much more money CBS and Warner Brothers Discovery / Turner will still give you to keep it even at 68 because live sports is killing it on TV. It's the only thing really left on TV that smashes everything else. And the month of March. So again, I use those 2 words, zero need. We're talking about something that there's zero need for here with this. And we gave it a lot of time. All right. Hey, I've got 2 more gripes. Quick one, a third gripe. ESPN cramming too many games at the same time, like Duke today on at the same time with Auburn and Alabama, and overlapping is the Houston-Arizona game. Again, ESPN in particular does not care because they, in large part, rule the sport, and they have other interests like the NHL 4 countries tournaments going on tonight on ABC, and they don't want it competed with as much. So we get multiple games in the afternoon on top of each other, as opposed to some of it spread out at night. Am I being too critical of games being crammed on top of each other, Jason?
Well, part of it's what you made the point before. Too many reviews is what's extending these games.
Yeah.
Games should be able to get over in 2 hours. Sorry, they can get over in 2 hours. Take 1 TV timeout away, not timeout, but a commercial. Shorten the TV breaks by 15, 20 seconds. Do that 6, 7 times during a game. You cut a couple more minutes off the game. Maybe you change the foul scenario where you're not in the bonus at 7 fouls. Maybe make it 8 or 9 fouls because there's way more fouling in today's basketball than there used to be. Maybe extend the foul situation to where you're not in the bonus 4 minutes into the second half, like we saw the other night in USF Memphis. They're shooting free throws like 5 or 6 minutes into the second half.
Agreed. Matt, thoughts on ESPN cramming too many games together? Them in specific.
Well, just on Jason's point, why aren't we going to 4 quarters as the women do, right? Because it's 5 team fouls per quarter instead of the 7 per half. Like, if one team in men's basketball, if you get 7 fouls with like 13 minutes left, it's just an endless parade of the foul line those 13 minutes. So the rationale behind going to quarters is that you reset to 0 fouls midway through the second half. So that's an easy fix for Jason's idea. And then TJ, I've been banging the drum about 2.5-hour game windows for a very, very long time. Like, why hasn't this been done? I mean, Fox does it. Fox is not the main college basketball broadcaster, but Fox does 2.5-hour game windows. There's absolutely zero. You said zero need for tournament expansion.
Yep.
Zero reason to not have 2.5-hour game windows. This is absolutely nuts. It's just the most obvious thing in the world.
They're cramming it together.
If you have a 2.5-hour window.
Agreed. They in specific, because again, Fox and CBS are network deals, and they're not trying to cram 4 games into a 6-hour time frame. With that final gripe, and this is interesting, Jason and I were talking about this the other night. I'm renewing my ongoing 10-plus year objection that there's no real regulation, there's no national supervisor of officials saying to these walking zombie referees in February, especially late February, You're not going to work 3 straight games in 3 nights in 3 cities, much less 4 in 4 straight days for a lot of these guys that literally will work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right in a row in 4 different cities. Because the NBA doesn't do this. It's the Wild West. It's unregulated, and you get worse officiating because these guys are zombies this time of year because they've been doing this for the last 60 days, and they're exhausted. I don't care what they claim, how hyped up they are on caffeine or other things. The travel, the rigors of it, the delays that they go through to get to these games. Some of these guys get there maybe an hour before game time on some of these games. You look and you see the same refs and you're going, my God, that guy's reffed 17 games this week.
In our example, we saw Joe Lindsay Thursday night, USF Memphis, and he was in Tuscaloosa today,
Saturday
Auburn, Alabama, Joe Lindsay.
And there's a likelihood he'll be somewhere tomorrow or somewhere Monday night and somewhere again Tuesday. And Matt, you cannot convince me that it does not affect the officiating and the human element, that they're traveling so much and worn down so much. And with the game so fast, so physical, and bang, bang, you're a zombie doing this. We should have a national supervisor regulating you cannot work 3 consecutive nights. You cannot work 4 times in the same week. You can pick and choose where you want to work. But again, my belief, and I don't think this is unreasonable, you cannot work 3 nights in a row. The NBA doesn't allow it. And you cannot work more than 3 times in a week. You can't work a 4th, a 5th, a 6th game in a 7-day time frame. It's insanity. Matt, final thought.
Yeah, I mean, I used to officiate high school basketball, but that did not involve significant extended travel. But your legs feel it, right? If you're working a constant series of games day after day after day, your legs are going to feel it. So I've been there. I can relate. And it's like, we have to regulate truckers, right? You have to have rest stops. You have to have rest breaks.
Pilots.
You can't just
pilots.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these things need to be regulated. And I would say, and I don't know what the policy is, the only way working on consecutive nights makes any remote amount of sense is that if you basically don't have to travel beyond a couple miles. Like if you're in New York,
100-mile drive or something like that.
Yeah. So like if you work a St. John's game at Madison Square Garden, and then you work a Columbia Ivy League game the next day, and so you just have like what, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour of travel, a short car or bus ride. That's the only way it's workable. If you're being asked to get on a plane and go into a motel and go through all the rigors of logistics, getting yourself situated. No, if you can operate from a home base, that's the only way any of this makes sense. And I'd really be interested to know, if officials are being made to fly cross regionally, why isn't that being rethought? I'm not presuming this, but I'm just saying if that is the case.
They already are. They're all over the
I
country.
mean, that's my sense, that you do see the most prominent officials in different time zones, very distinctly different locales. No,
3 straight nights or 4 straight nights, you see them in different time zones, crisscrossing.
Yeah. So like you should just be circulating. You can do lots of different college basketball games, especially in the East. In the West, where schools are more spread out, different story. But in the East, like you can just work the small conferences, the mid-tier conferences, the power conferences in a New York, Philadelphia, the Carolinas, absolutely. But you can't be making officials fly long distances. So like,
Tobacco Road.
Just quickly. I've been an official, so like I like that game paycheck. Wouldn't we all like to get that big game paycheck several consecutive nights? So, the middle ground is, okay, if you want that paycheck, you're not going to get every big, sexy game. You're going to be working the smaller conferences because that way you can stay in your own bed or in one city over the course of several days. So there have to be trade-offs here.
No doubt, but like Tobacco Road, where you've got the 3 ACC teams, but you're close enough to Charlotte, for example, or you're close enough to South Carolina, to Clemson, et cetera.
Atlanta.
Atlanta for the SEC, and how many programs are around that? Programs are near Atlanta, or Dallas. Pick one. Chicago for the Big Ten, in and around Los Angeles, and all the programs in Southern California and up and down the California coast that you can easily get to go work a game. That's what your point is with that gripe. By the way, we do have people watching and making comments. My aunt, D.D. Reeves, who's watching us in Tennessee, says her gripe is nobody calls traveling or palming the ball anymore. I'm sorry, Aunt, that went out in the 90s, if it was ever there in the 90s. It definitely hasn't been in this century. Right, Matt? Right, Jason? On calling, traveling, and palming the ball on the officiating. We can't.
Not
we're asking too much.
Not
I guess we're asking.
Happen, Aunt DD. Sorry.
Yeah, we're asking too much for the officials to actually enforce that rule. I saw this is classic.
3 seconds, and the key doesn't get enforced, and also the coach's box. Coach's box technicals don't get enforced either.
By the
Why
way,
do we even have a coach's box?
The other night, on Wednesday night, in the Duke-Cal game, Jim Boeheim is working the game. And Corey Alexander is working with him on ESPN with West Durham, and they called a 3-second in the lane in the game. And Jim Boeheim said, I don't know that I've seen that called in the last 10 years of my career. Right. 3 seconds. He said, much less in this building, meaning Cameron, to call 3 seconds in the lane. So we're right on the officiating gripe. All right, Matt Zimick, you do a great job with the Trojans Wire website. From USA Today. I know USC took a loss today to Minnesota. You're also writing about the USC women and Juju Watkins. Juju. What an amazing story she is out west with the women's game. You've got Paige Beckers and UConn in the east. You've got Juju Watkins and USC in the west. South Carolina, the defending champs. Yep. South Carolina and UConn, tomorrow in a made-for-TV women's game. So I know you're writing about all of that
too. Texas. You have LSU and Texas as well.
Going to be a lot of fun.
It really seems as though there are like 10 women's teams that, pick one, any of them could win the national champion. And so you're going to get some amazing Elite Eight games. The 1 seeds versus the 2 seeds. So many great teams. You guys are very generous to me here at College Basketball Coast to Coast. So I want to be generous to somebody. We're podcasting about USC women's basketball at Trojans Wire with a woman named CC Clay. My Thoughts 0530 on Twitter. CC Clay has a USC women's basketball YouTube channel called Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. The best USC women's basketball analysis anywhere on social media. Check out CC Clay's YouTube channel. She does a great job for us, and she deserves a much bigger platform. Check her out.
Great prop. And if you have not seen the bonkers highlights of Juju Watkins and USC beating UCLA the other night and how electric it was in the Galen Center, and I'm talking about Juju's making step back 25-footers, and then she's making like Matt Zimick in the open floor, blocking shots on the fast break. I mean, it was wild to watch how much she impacted that game.
I want to see Matt Zimick blow the whistle for a foul.
Oh,
yeah. I want to see Matt Zimick
with the striped shirts, and then not review it for 4 minutes like we keep seeing in college basketball. Matt, keep up the great work. Trojans Wire, USA Today website, also the College Wire website for the rest of college basketball. He's opining there. He's with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast. I love it. Let's stay locked in for all of this as we head to March. Appreciate you as always, my friend.
Thanks. And my parting note, BYU over Kansas State. So that little bubble resurgence by Kansas State, gone.
Took a hit. Yeah, took a hit tonight. Again, we do not need – we've already been there. We don't need 8 more spots because we have a tough enough time getting to 68. That's another point that I didn't have on my litany of reasons why not to expand is 65, 66, 67, and 68. You're looking at and picking
bad
the best
teams already.
Best of the bad teams, borderline teams. I don't need 8 more, much less 28 more. There we go. All right, we got it. We got all the gripes. Matt, have a good rest of your night. I know you're in the West. They're just getting started out West right now on this Saturday. Be well, my friend.
See you next time.
There goes Matt Zemek. Follow him at Matt Zemek, Zemek, on social media, on Twitter, Trojans Wire website, College Wire website from USA Today. Search those. Read his work. Have we about covered everything else that we need to cover? I mean, one of the few things that we have left to cover is what's going to happen on Sunday. Full disclosure that you and I saw the Memphis Tigers on Thursday night in Tampa. What are your thoughts having seen them in person as they've now won 8 in a row? They've got all these great out-of-conference wins. They're a great debate about where are they going to get slotted in the NCAA tournament. They're in the field. What are your thoughts on Memphis, having seen them in Tampa Thursday night as you and I did together? They walloped South Florida. What are your thoughts?
Impressed. If they can play like they did. They've got size. They've got some shooters. They've got a little ball handling. Penny seems like he's getting it together a little bit from a schematics, X's and O's perspective. They've got the tools to make a move. Again, can they play together as a team? They were pretty connected to Thursday night defensively, I thought. Now, USF couldn't throw it in the ocean. I get it. But give Memphis credit. And don't we have to give a little credit to our girl, Dominique? How about Dominique?
Shall we tell this story?
Tell a story about Dominique.
All right, so we are there, and Memphis is walloping USF the whole second half. The building's emptying out. Good showing of Tiger fans, probably 300 or 400 Tiger fans in the building in Tampa. Again, when you're winning, everybody wants to come to the games. So we come down to see my longtime radio buddy, Dave Woloshin, who is now almost to his 40th year of broadcasting Memphis basketball on TV and radio. We come down to see him, and we're waiting to socialize, and we're sitting down there, and he's waiting for Penny Hardaway on the radio to come do the radio postgame show. And Dominique, who's sitting with us, is a female longtime fan of Penny Hardaway's from the days with the Orlando Magic. I would say she's early 30s at the most, late 20s, early 30s. She said she had been watching the Magic, quote, since I was a little girl with Penny Hardaway. So she's there with a little Penny doll, one of the little Penny dolls that, have Chris Rock's voice when you push the button. And she wants him to autograph it. She's got a Penny Hardaway Orlando Magic old school jersey. And he was so cool to sign it for her. She got a picture made with him. A cool moment with the fans. I mean, they emptied the entire arena out. And she was down there with us while we were socializing, just a few of us. And Penny was very cool
to get the shoe signed. She wanted the shoe signed.
She was going with her Penny. She had Penny Nike shoes that she was trying to get him to sign. She went all out. Give Penny for her
credit,
collection.
Though. Give Penny credit. He was very cool about it. And he did the interview, signed it, took a picture.
Listen, I will say this. I will put the hat on. Memphis is back in terms of resurgence and a top 15 program. I don't know how far they're going to go in March. We got to see the bracket. They are the favored team in the American Conference. They play at Wichita State tomorrow, who gave them problems in the game in Memphis back about 3 weeks ago. If Memphis can spread the floor and make threes, they're going to be dangerous against almost anybody. And they already have beaten teams like UConn, Michigan State, Clemson at Clemson, Ole Miss, Missouri, San Francisco out in San Francisco. They can play with anybody. They
very
blistered,
deep, though. Only play deep. Seven guys, maybe.
I mean, they have blistered UAB in the recent. They have been tested this year. Now let's see what they can do with Wichita State. We saw them in person. So again, this is a mid-major program that can maybe do some damage and be a Sweet 16 team. Penny Hardaway only has one NCAA tournament win in his previous 6 seasons.
Yep.
Stand by for what the Memphis Tigers can or can't do, but we saw them firsthand with the guards. How many alley-oops to Musa Cisse, the big man, the African, the transfer?
At least.
He was making like Jason Powers on the rim-racking dunks on the alley-oop.
Danger's a wide body who can play a little bit in the post.
So we saw the Tigers.
Yep.
We saw the Tigers. Did we cover everything that I think we were intending to cover tonight? We've been here a little while.
I think so.
Tonight. With everything
Thanks for the tickets, Dave Woloshin.
Wolo helping us out. Got us a couple of tickets for the Yingling Center. Shout out to our buddy Jim Lighthall, the voice of the USF Bulls, going on 20 seasons as the play-by-play man. Jim was with me for 10 years as I did the play-by-play. He's gone on for 18 more years now, 28 years with the program.
Good for him.
For USF, for South Florida in Tampa.
Real quick, I noticed, what do they do with Fletcher at the end of the year with the whole Abdul-Rahim situation? What do they do there, you think?
His lead assistant is the interim coach. Amir Abdul-Rahim passed away from a serious illness, obviously, in October. I don't know that they keep him. I think Michael Kelly may look to start over with a bigger name if he can find it, or an established mid-major coach. Stay tuned. As Jim was saying to us, and this is not a nuclear secret here, if they win some games down the stretch, they're at 500. It's a much more compelling case. If they do not, everybody gets it. Everybody understands the job is likely open.
Right.
Here for South Florida in Tampa and the coaching carousel. With that, my friend, thank you again to our sponsor, Go Sleeves. Patronize them, gosleeves.com, for the therapeutic knee, elbow, calf sleeves, and all their apparel. Use the promo code TJ. GoSleeves.com is a proud sponsor of our college basketball coast-to-coast coverage. Other than that, let's see what happens Sunday with that St. John's Creighton game. Again, Memphis in action as well. We're 4 weeks from Selection Sunday.
And a shout out to our guy Bart Heisch for chiming in, the 1996 Mississippi State Final Four player at Mississippi State with Dan Peer and company.
Love Bart's insight. We've had him on college basketball coast to coast. Our colleagues like Tyler Jones, TC Martin out in Las Vegas, Tyler Jones in the Big 12 footprint, Ari Russell in New York. Yep. Thanks to our insider Adam Zagoria on with us tonight. Adam will be at the Garden for St. John's and Creighton. That should be a great battle in the Big East Sunday afternoon. Again, we've been doing the live show on social media. Find us on podcast, including the podcasts that are out during the week at College Basketball Coast to Coast, the podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. Jason Powers, have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you for hanging with me on this Saturday night again for the Nightcap Show.
You got it anytime.
There he is. I'm merely TJ Reeves. Thanks also to Matt Zimick for being with us. Thank you for watching, for listening on podcast. All the way through March of the Final Four. Lock it in on the YouTube channel, the podcast, social media. It is college basketball coast to coast.